Hey humans, and welcome to Read to Me, Matt Dunn. I'm Matt Dunn, and I'm going to read to you. We are reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We are on Chapter 10. Chapter 10, Part 2. It was morning when I awoke, and my first care was to visit the fire. I uncovered it, and a gentle breeze quickly fanned it into a flame. I observed this also, and contrived a fan of branches, which roused the embers when they were nearly extinguished. When night came again, I found with pleasure that the fire gave light as well as heat, and that the discovery of this element was useful to me in my food. For I found some of the ovals of the travelers had been roasted and tasted much more savory than the berries I gathered from the trees. I tried, therefore, to dress my food in some manner, placing it in the live embers. I found that the berries were spoiled by this operation, and the nuts and roots much improved. Food, however, became scarce, and I often spent the whole day searching in vain for a few acorns to assuage the pangs of hunger. When I found this, I resolved to quit the place that I had hitherto inhabited, to seek for one where the few wants I experienced would be more easily satisfied. In this emigration, I exceedingly lamented the loss of the fire which I had obtained through accident, and knew not how to reproduce it. I gave several hours to the serious consideration of this difficulty, but I was obliged to relinquish all attempts to supply it, and, wrapping myself up in my cloak, I struck across the wood towards the setting sun. I passed 3 days in these rambles, and at length discovered the open country. A great fall of snow had taken place the night before, and the fields were of one uniform white. The appearance was disconsolate, and I found my feet chilled by the cold, damp substance that covered the ground. It was about 7 in the morning, and I longed to obtain food and shelter. At length I perceived a small hut on a rising ground, which had doubtless been built for the convenience of some shepherd. This was a new sight to me, and I examined the structure with great curiosity. Finding the door open, I entered. An old man sat in it, near a fire, over which he was preparing his breakfast. He turned on hearing a noise, and perceiving me, shrieked loudly, and quitting the hut, ran across the field with a speed of which his debilitated form hardly appeared capable. His appearance different from any I had ever before seen, and his flight somewhat surprised me. But I was enchanted by the appearance of the hut. Here the snow and rain could not penetrate. The ground was dry, and it presented to me then as exquisite and divine a retreat as pandemonium appeared to be to the demons of hell after their suffering in the lake of fire. There was a lot. That was a very deep statement. I greedily devoured the remnants of the shepherd's breakfast, which consisted of bread, cheese, milk, and wine. The latter, however, I did not like. Overcome by fatigue, I lay down among some straw and fell asleep. Guy sleeps a lot, am I right? Totally. It was noon when I awoke, and allured by the warmth of the sun which shone brightly on the white ground, I determined to recommence my travels. And depositing. Depositing. The word's depositing. The word is fucking depositing. And depositing the remains of the peasant's breakfast in a wallet I found. That's weird. Where do you put your bacon and eggs? In my wallet. I proceeded across the fields for several hours, until at sunset I arrived at a village. How miraculous did this appear. The huts, the neater cottages, the neater cottages, and stately houses engaged my admiration by turns. The vegetables in the garden, the milk and cheese that I saw placed at the windows of some of the cottages allured my appetite. One of the best of these I entered, but I had hardly placed my foot within the door before the children shrieked, and one of the women fainted. The whole village was roused. Some fled, some attacked me, until grievously bruised by stones and many other kinds of missiled weapons, I escaped to the open country and fearfully took refuge in a low hovel, quite bare and making a wretched appearance after the palaces I had beheld in the village. This hovel, however, joined a cottage of a neat and pleasant appearance, but after my late dearly bought experience, I dared not enter it. My place of refuge was constructed of wood, but so low that I could with difficulty sit upright in it. No wood, however, was placed on the earth, which formed the floor, but it was dry, and although the wind entered it by innumerable chinks, I found it an agreeable asylum from the snow and rain. Poor chap. Here, then, I retreated and lay down, happy to have found a shelter, however miserable from the inclemency of the season, and still more from the barbarity of man. Pardon. As soon as morning dawned, I crept from my kennel that I might view the adjacent cottage and discover if I could remain in the habitation I had found. It was situated against the back of the cottage and surrounded on the sides, which were exposed by a pigsty and a clear pool of water. One part was open, and by that I had crept in. But now I covered every crevice by which I might be perceived with stones and wood, yet in such a manner that I might move them on occasion to pass out. All the light I enjoyed came through the sky, and that was sufficient for me. So I guess he found like an abandoned cottage, whatever. Let's continue. Having thus arranged my dwelling and carpeted it with clean straw, I retired, for I saw the figure of a man at a distance, and I remember too well my treatment the night before to trust myself in his power. I had first, however, provided my sustenance for the day by a loaf of coarse bread, which I purloined, and a cup with which I could drink more conveniently than my own from my hand, of the pure water which flowed by my retreat. The floor was a little raised, so that it was kept perfectly dry, and by its vicinity to the chimney of the cottage, it was tolerably warm. Good for you. Boobity boobity boo. Going to go to part 3. If you wish for me to keep reading, please check out more of my videos. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, please, and we will be friends, I promise.